AI this and AI that. Maybe it isn't the GPTs of the world that are going to have the most impact on your daily life. The futuristic dystopia of iRobot might be closer than you think. The last couple of weeks, companies like Figure and Tesla have been showing us that robots are actually closer and closer to our daily lives. In this video, I'm going to tell you about what robotics is, what potential impact it might have, and this being an investment channel, tell you about how to invest in the coming robotics hype. But before we get into all that, did you know that robotics is actually a concept that hails from 300 years before Christ in ancient Greece? The Greek example actually goes back to the myth of Talos. Talos was a bronze automaton guarding the shores of Crete against pirates. There are also other similar examples from China with Yan Shi, the artificer or the engineer, that built mechanical men. But the word robot actually comes from 1920 when a Czech author called Karel Kapček, I probably butchered that name, wrote a play called Rossum's Universal Robot, where mechanical people were made to serve humanity but eventually rebelled. This all sounds very familiar to me. I feel like I've seen this movie before. So that was sort of how robotics got started, or at least the idea of it. And the idea has continued to perpetuate throughout society. So there have been examples of robots in popular culture ever since. And you can see this in, for example, Star Wars, the Terminator, and 2001 A Space Odyssey with HAL 9000, and the list goes on and on. But why is it that we make these robots in our image? Why do they look like us? Why are they talking like us? Why do they move like us? And why do they have intention? That entire concept is called anthropomorphizing, or anthropomorphism, where you assign something, or something inanimate, like a robot for example, human abilities and human skills. And for the most part, I think that is in an attempt to have a broader or a deeper understanding or connection to the technology that we develop and use every day. An example of this is if you have a robot vacuum cleaner, for example. What do you call yours? Is it just the robot vacuum cleaner, or have you given it a name? For example, mine has a name. So if we look away from popular culture and the robots that we're using now, like the vacuum cleaners, robots actually got their start in a much more pragmatic way, and that started in the 1960s. And the first robot to ever be used, or industrial robot to ever be used, was called the Unimate. And that is the classical one-armed assembly line robot that was used in General Motors factories. And the reason it was used by General Motors was to do tasks that were considered too hot, too heavy, or too dangerous for humans. And of course the Unimate was just the start, and that is a simple robot with just one arm. And you have a lot of examples of other robots that in the later years have been used for more exploratory purposes. And a good example of this is, for example, the Mars rover. Okay, so fast forward from the Mars rover to today. What is the current state of robotics? Well, you have probably seen robots like the Atlas from Boston Dynamics that runs parkour courses and jumps up and down from boxes, or the robot Spot that looks like a dog that walks around and inspects industrial automation plants and stuff like that. And Boston Dynamics have long been seen as the gold standard within robotics, and I've personally worked with the Spot robot myself. It's actually kind of weird because I'm guilty of doing exactly what I said that humans often do, like anthropomorphizing or giving a robot human-like qualities, because I tried to pet Spot the first time I saw it. And might be because I'm a dog person or something, but it was just, the whole thing was surreal. I really wanted to pet this robot. And this is true, I actually did. Okay, so back to reality and away from my fascination with petting robot dogs. I actually worked on a project with Spot where we used it for industrial inspection. And even at that time, even though it was controlled by humans for the most part, Spot was really, really impressive. And up until now, robots like Spot or Atlas have been controlled mostly by programming and not AI. But this is changing, and you can see a lot of the competitors of Boston Dynamics actually doing this better than Boston Dynamics themselves. When merging robotics and AI, there are two main players that I think is really interesting to look at, and the first one is Tesla. If you've paid attention in the markets in 2024, Tesla has had a really bad year, and so far they're the worst performer year to date. Of course, there are several reasons for Tesla's bad performance, and I think some of it is the electric vehicle price wars in China, and another one is Elon just being Elon. But in addition to all of these bearish signals, they also have something really bullish going for them, and that is the robot Optimus. Optimus is Tesla's version of Atlas, and it's the humanoid robot that was introduced by Tesla in 2021 at one of the Tesla days. And at that time, it was just a person in a costume dressed as a robot, and that was sort of the whole unveiling of the project. Tesla's reasoning behind making the Optimus was that it was going to be used in the Tesla factories, And Elon later took a switch and said that it was actually going to be the main source of revenue for Tesla in the future. Now, like I said, Elon is crazy, but let's listen to the guy, because he said that the cost of Optimus was going to be 20,000 per unit. And if that is the case, and it actually costs 20K, you could probably replace a lot of humans just by using Optimus bots. Now, the Optimus has had its share of controversy. So in January of 2024, Elon released a video of the Optimus folding t-shirts. But if you pay attention, you'll see in the lower right-hand corner of that video, you'll see another robot arm replicating the movements that the Optimus is doing. And people on Twitter were quick to point out that this seems like the robot is teleoperated. And teleoperation, that just means that someone is actually driving the robot. It's not doing this autonomously. And after people pointed this out on Twitter, Elon put out another tweet saying that, of course, the Optimus isn't doing this autonomously, but it will be able to do so in the future. But I don't think that Elon would have tweeted this out if he weren't called out on it. But this is kind of classic Elon, I think. He promises something that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but then he sort of turns around and delivers on it anyway. I guess the only thing that he hasn't really delivered on yet is the Roadster. So when Elon says that he can create a $20,000 human clone that can work day and night, I'm actually inclined to believe him. It might not be tomorrow, but in the next couple of years, sure. In the middle of March 2024, Elon let it be known that he was suing OpenAI and Sam Altman for breach of contract. And as if Elon couldn't be more pissed off at OpenAI and Sam Altman, it turns out that a company that's working closely with OpenAI is actually miles ahead of him and Tesla in the robotic space. And that company is called Figure. And what they do is they make a robot called the Figure 1. And Figure 1 is a 100% neural network controlled humanoid robot. That's a lot of words. What does that word salad even mean? 100% neural network control. Well, what that means, if you're not deep into AI, what that means is that everything that the robot does is controlled by AI. That means its movement and its talking, everything is done through neural nets. And in mid-March, Figure released a video showing what the Figure 1 can do. And in this video, they showed that one of the people working at Figure actually having a conversation with the Figure 1, having it hand that person an apple while cleaning up a lot of kitchen utensils and supplies. The reason this demo is so important and so cool is that it's able to show a robot reasoning about its environment. So for example, it knew that there was an apple there and it could give that to the person asking it questions because it's the only edible thing there. And it's about to reason about its memory so it can remember what it did and it can plan future actions, which is really big in robotics. And this is the first time we've ever seen something like it. If you want to watch the full video, which I recommend that you do, the link will be down in the description below. This is really huge because we're getting closer and closer to a robot that can actually reason about its environment, learn, and make actions based on what's around it instead of being programmed. As an AI engineer, I of course love seeing this progress, but we're also touching upon a couple of areas now that are pretty scary. We've all heard about the dystopian AI future, and I think that autonomous robots actually brings us a bit closer to that future. It's not happening right now, but it could in the near future. So before we go into full Terminator mode and Arnold comes looking for your kids, there are some implications that are really important to look at. And I think the first one starts with manual labor. If we have fully autonomous robots that are able to do work that previously have taken humans to do and they only cost $20,000 and they can work all night, what's going to happen to warehouse jobs or retail jobs? And this isn't just about restocking shelves or putting a box where it needs to be, but it could be, for example, picking fruit. I'm not saying that it has to be a humanoid looking robot that does it, but it could be as simple as a drone. But the whole point is that a robot or something can effectively replace humans at a much lower cost. If you believe that robotics is going to be a big part of the future, where should you place your money? And I think based on what we've talked about in this video, the first and most obvious investment is Tesla. Now, I'm not saying that you should invest in Tesla and that Tesla is a good company, but it's something to look at for sure. Just based on what Elon himself has said, that Optimus is going to be such a big part of their product line, maybe investing in a publicly traded robotics company isn't such a bad idea. And downstream from Tesla, another interesting company to look at is Microsoft, because Microsoft has a big stake in OpenAI, and OpenAI's models is in use in Figure. And if you're unsure of who the winner in the robotics race is, then going for the pick and shovel play is always easy. And as I've said multiple times on this channel, just invest in semiconductors, man. But with that being said, this is not financial advice. In addition to semiconductors and the more well-known tech companies like Tesla and Microsoft, there are other more unknown stuff to look at as well, with sensor technology and even metal providers that will be important in robotics. If you're anything like me and you like looking for the picks and shovels, then this video goes through a couple of my trades and show how that sometimes works and how it sometimes doesn't work.